Hi.
Hi. I was like, is that the slides? Yeah. Okay. We're on. We're on it. Yeah.
Hey. Oh my gosh. I have to tell you, when you said yes to this, I kind of freaked out. I was like, she's going to say yes to this because my director called me and she said, this book just came out and I think you should read it. And I was like, okay. This beautiful book, which is...
I don't know where mine are. I don't know where they are on my list.
It is so gorgeous, all of it. I mean, this publishing company, my God. I sometimes just touch the front of it, but...
Right? It's like an object of art.
It is art.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very Deutsch in that way, you know?
It's a book.
I at first, I mean, I'm reading this essay of yours, and at first I was like, now who does this person think she is? You know, like, I'm connected to Frida. And Emily, oh my God, I started reading it, and I've never had an experience in my entire life that I felt like someone was speaking directly to me. And I couldn't put it down. It's so good. And every page I turned, oh my gosh, yes. Every page I turned, I just was like emphatically saying, I was like, yes, because I felt like for the first time ever that someone was speaking with my intentions, you know? And it was like this thread of red ribbon from my right ventricle went to yours. And I felt so connected to you in this beautiful, vulnerable way. Mm-hmm. And so then we reached out to Portland Center Stage and to see if we could have an interview with you. And you said yes. And I thought, crap.
I have the ventricle photo right here. I'm like, my whole house is covered in Frida. I'm like,
same here.
All in.
Same here. I'll take you on a little tour when we finish. I got it on everywhere. Of course, not there. That's my daughter in that picture, but
everywhere else. Yeah.
But it was really interesting to listen to your journey because I wrote this play. I wrote this play about Frida Kahlo. So a long time ago, 10 years ago now, my friend Alex Espy said to me, he goes, I see a Frida Kahlo in you, Vanessa. And I thought it was a really weird thing to say because I didn't know her that well. Mm-hmm. So I started to research her, and then I started to find similarities, as you have found with Frida, that mirrored my own life. And then I thought, well, my God, I was like, I want Frida to live today, like in this voice. I want to bring her to life today. And so the first time I wrote the play, it was just about Frida. And it was fine, but there was a missing element that I was kind of petrified to go into at the time. And as I started to rework it, I started to realize that the missing element was putting myself in the work and finding that being that vulnerable and just as you say in here, to just stop hiding, I guess, because I spent, 40 years of my life, I feel like, hiding. And I decided to finally stop doing that. And people will say, oh, that's brave. But I also think that that's the one thing that connects us with other people is to remove that veil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And is it brave or is it just like you're doing your job? Like
I'm just doing my job.
That's what I feel. I'm like, there's no suit of armor here in my house. There's some books and a computer. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to, like, I understand why people say that, but I just think, like, it's kind of like, oh my God, there's a garden. I'm sorry. Something's happening out there. They're sort of like not wanting to take responsibility for the fact that connecting with people is everyone's job. Like, if it's brave, then everyone should be doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I felt like in doing that, reading your essay, I mean, you went through these things, and I think the only way that we get through trauma, if you are disabled or differently abled, and you go through it, it does change the way that your mind works. It changes, and I found that the only way to get through that trauma was to tell my story in this play. Mm-hmm. that reflected so deeply with me in this essay.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much. It's a huge compliment. And I think that's what makes artists, though. It's like, and it's not about like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's just like what doesn't kill you just didn't kill you. And then now you have some choices to make about how you're going to, live your life, keep living your life. I'm sorry about the noise. This man hates me, so I cannot go out. Stop the leaf blower. He just frightens me. I think he just doesn't like me. I think he's in that brotherhood. What is it?
Is he a Mason? Is that a brotherhood?
The Mormon.
Yeah, the handshake.
Yeah, I don't know. Every time I'm like, I'm sorry about all the stuff in the law, and he's like, anyway, so no, but I mean, I think that's like, a crucible is different than, a crucible experience has a lot of different feelings to it, right? Like, it's like you go into something really terrible and it's like a tight squeeze. And when you get out, you're changed. You are changed. It's the truth. That's why I like Moths, which I know you hate, because I tell the 5 things you don't know about me. I also love Phil Collins. But, bugs transform, or like especially butterflies is sort of like, it's cheesy, but it's also pretty profound. It's like you go in this like thing and you're like, wah, and then you come out, and then what? So I think people. What was hard for me to write? Well, I didn't want to write this book. I never did want to write this book, but I wrote it finally because I was just like, now if I don't do this, I'll never do it. Like, it's all the things I didn't want to say, was afraid to say. And then once I said them, I was like, that was fine, which is stupid since I write nonfiction anyway, and I've been saying a lot of things that are personal for most of my career. But I was basically just like, I'll just leave that there. That's just a little too much. And I think for some people it probably is, but anyway, not for you.
No, I feel like you talk about things that I think that we all think and we don't say out loud. And that gave me permission that you did say it out loud. I mean, you painted with words in this, Emily. And I mean, I'm on the precipice of about to do that. I'm on the precipice because prior to reading this, and just 2 months ago, I decided to make the switch in my play and put in this event that happened in my childhood where my parents, I have a congenial defect on my left hand, and they wanted me to go to this surgeon when I was 4, and they flew me out there, and it was experimental at the time. I mean, it was like 82, 81.
Right.
And this guy wanted to remove my toes and put them to my hand. And I had to go through all of these procedures, and take the form of my hand and do the whole, the cast and the indentation. And when it came down to it, I remember feeling like I just didn't want it. I didn't want it. And everyone was trying to push for my own good to have it. And at 4, I just had this moment where I decided the only way I was going to be heard is if I have this complete freak out on this surgeon who just had the most plastic falseness about him that was very saccharine sweet, and like, you'll be able to go on the jungle gyms, Vanessa, and you'll be able to.
You have a mustache? He sounds like
he did it. He was kind of bald, and he was wearing scrubs that were dirty. I remember, and I had this orange plastic chair that wasn't built for any anus. It was just like just small. So I just
ruin your stuff.
It's like people make a lot of decisions for you sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And I just decided, I slumped in the chair and I just started to throw a fit, and I started to kick him and just decided to go berserk. And then my dad realized, he was like, oh, she doesn't want this. Took me out of there.
Wrong. Yeah. Well, that's great though, that you exercised agency in whatever way you found. Your dad listened to you. And I think that's what's so profound about Frida's life. Like, she had so much to manage, right? So much physical pain, so many surgeries, so much, right? And of course, male art historians love to talk about like the pierced vagina with the sort of hole or whatever, but it's just like, she found ways to express her agency by anything. She just like in the bed whenever she could or however she could. And I feel like that to me is inspirational in the non-cheesy sense, but basically just like that is what everyone actually has to do, just under different circumstances, is find a way. And she did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that was, to me, like, I think the whole, like, although she's often depicted again primarily by male art historians, which I'm sure you've read plenty of, is sort of weak and vulnerable, grasping, and like,
or crazy.
They love to call women crazy. This is
love to call her crazy.
Hysterical. She couldn't have a baby, so she's nuts. Like, it's like she had so much agency in her life, and guess what? We're still looking at her paintings. She died in 1954.
And I find her paintings more engaging any day than Diego's. And I ask people that, like, whose work do you think resonates more today? Is it Diego's work or is it Frida's? And it's always Frida's. I want to ask you a question because you went to Mexico City and I went to Mexico City and I went to Casa Azul and I thought I was going to find Frida in Casa Azul. I was like, I'm going to find her in here. And then I was sorely pissed. But that's a whole nother thing. But when I got there, I was surprised. And I don't know if you had this encounter, but I found that the men in Mexico City kind of talked down about Frida, and women revered her as like Our Lady of Guadalupe. But the men were always like, Frida Kahlo, you know, like they were pick up her fists, you know, Frida. But women, like, there was a reverence that came, and I didn't know if that was your experience when you went there, because I would talk to the locals to try to get some information, and the men were always really jaded about her.
Mm-hmm. Well, men don't like it when women kind of go on and exercise their power and on socks and tote bags, magnets, and like everywhere. You know, their face is everywhere. It's like, I think it's kind of the ultimate male fantasy to be remembered in the way that she's remembered. And, I mean, this is an oversimplification, of course. But I have heard men say, not in Mexico City, but other artists say, well, she wasn't that good of an artist, but she's an icon. Because to say both would be like, that's just too much for one lady to have. You know, I mean, that's what it is. It's like, she can't have all that power, because then what does it say about, you know, me as a male artist, or, you know, whatever, or male in general. And it's just sad. It's like, well, she was pretty remarkable. It's okay that she was a woman. But like, why are we having this conversation in 2021? Well, we are.
Well, and she was prolific too. She was ahead of her time, and she was probably the most tweetable artist at the time.
Even her outfits, she would have had the ultimate Instagram outfit feed.
Absolutely. I want to talk about, you talk about hiding at the end of your essay, you know, and how long sometimes we hide our differences, you know, and whether they are physical or not. I feel like we all go forward in life hiding our differences. But I always tried to find pockets to put my hands in growing up.
Yeah. And
I want to talk about Frida and you and the similarity you felt, because when I look at Frida, I can see that she put flowers, she made a crown for herself, I feel like she made herself a queen. She wore all these colors, and she wore these skirts. And so in that sense, it was a distraction, I feel like, from her difference. But then she did this thing, and I don't know if you've heard this. She tied a bell to her left shoe. So you'd hear her like ping, ping coming down. What's different, you know? But I found that so fascinating that she did all of this to try to distract, but yet not enough for you to forget. And
that's interesting.
Yeah. And I just want to talk to you about navigating in life as an artist, and the parts that we do hide and the parts that we choose to reveal. And that's something that you find you tread that line finally.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually funny. I'd forgotten about this until you just mentioned it. I had a pair of slippers in college that would growl when you walked, like a dinosaur growl or something. And everyone hated me. They were like, "Take off these fucking slippers." And then I was like into ankle bracelets. Like, here I am, like, you know, it was some kind of '90s nightmare. And it's like, you know, everything's all baggy, and, you know, like, that wasn't a bell, but it was like a little bracelet. So I'd forgotten about that, actually. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, one of the things that people, this is my theory anyway, I think Frida Kahlo painted to maintain a sense of privacy. And people are always like, what? Like, that seems weird because she painted her face. And I'm like, yeah, but she painted how she wanted you to see her face. And so if you are someone like Frida Kahlo or you or me, and like someone sees a part of you that you choose to reveal, and you can see the story being written on their face. Like, it's like, wow, winter has arrived. Winter's coming, the wall is here. And you just think, like, you don't know me. So here's what I'm going to show you. Here's what you get. And then the rest of it, you can go away. Like, here's what I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you all of this. And you're going to think it means what you think it means. But I am the only one who really knows what it means. And a lot of what's not shown is going to be hidden forever and no one will see it. That's what I think is genius about it. And I feel like that's what memoir at its best does. It's like, I'm going to choose how to tell you, like, what's it like to do this? Or what's it like to have this? So that you don't write my story for me. I've given you what I'm going to give you, and now we can stop speaking. In an elevator. I mean, it's like, So that's what I think she was doing. I don't think she was like, no one would ever say that about a man anyway. A man painter that painted himself. They'd be like, wow, But with her, it's like, oh, she's so narcissistic. It's like, no, she's not. She's just good at what she does, and she's got a really kind of cool face, and she has a lot of reasons why she's painting her face, and so you're wrong, in my opinion.
No, especially when that is the only thing that she could look at for 2 years of bed rest.
Hello,
she painted her reality, and it was right there in front of her.
Yeah,
beautifully
corsets too. Yeah,
and corsets, all the corsets. I want to talk about when you went to Casa Azul and the experience you had there. Mm-hmm. And I'll just share with you, I got a grant to go to Casa Azul, and I thought, I'm going to find Frida here. Oh. It's like, I'm going to find something no one's ever found. Right? Hubris. And I did take into account and you were pregnant, so I have nothing to complain about. I did not take into
excuse me, like 3 people. I mean, it was so big. Yeah.
But I came there and I was like, I'm going to be in her home. I'm going to see how she's lived. I'm going to smell the streets. I'm going to, feel like what it was like for her to have sex with a lover in this room while she forgets the sock outside of it and Diego gets pissed. And I didn't take into account the altitude and the pollution nor the temperature. I left here, Kansas City, and it was like 30 degrees. And then I got there, and it was like 89, and I was dying. In my experience, they really pushed us through really quickly. Yeah. I don't know if that happened for you.
I mean, there were a lot of people there. Yeah. I mean, I felt the same way. I was like, she's mine. It was like something like Gollum with the ring, like, bring it mine. And of course, there's like 7,000 people there. And I mean, people were like backing up with me. I was just like, no, I'm coming through. So I got to go a little slower because I was just huge. And that was actually nice for once to feel, because actually too, in that culture, like a pregnant woman isn't like an abomination. Like somehow it is here, even though, well, that's a whole other story. But anyway, but yeah, I did feel like I was going to feel something. Like I was pissed off. Like I was like, why am I not feeling the things I'm supposed to feel? And then I went into that glass room and like, it was like, oh, you wanted to feel something? Here's a brick. It's meeting your head. You're welcome. And that was like, then I had this extraordinary experience, but the whole time I was like, these people don't know what it's like, yeah, he's so bitchy. And then when I got into that room, I just was like, oh, right. This is good. So, I mean, I think that's kind of the danger of any kind of visitation of someone's home after they've died. It's like, it's a reconstruction of their life, and that's never going to be, it's never going to be as interesting as maybe reading about it or writing your way through it. It's just never going to be that.
Right. Yeah. The glass room for sure. I was surprised that so many things had been taken out of there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you felt like there were spaces on the floor that had clearly like had been painted around. So there was a gap of where something used to be. And I wanted to know what was in the spaces that were empty at that point. And so I expected it to feel more like a home and not a museum for some reason, but it is a museum. And when I got back in the car of the Uber afterwards, the Uber driver asked what I was doing in Mexico City. And I said, I'm studying Frida Kahlo. So that's why I went to Casa Azul. And he went, Casa Azul. Spit on the floor. Casa Azul. He's like, Frida's in Casa Azul. And I was like, well, where's Frida? And this is a local.
In Russia. That sounds like an angry Russian.
She's in London.
Yeah.
But he said she was in Dolores Olmeda's house. And I don't know if you went there.
I did not. Did you?
I did. I went there. And it was fascinating. I just wanted to know if you had that experience, because this woman was friends with Diego and Frida. And she took in her hairless dogs and peacocks, and they all vanished. And they just roam the grounds. And it's also a museum. But in that house, she has photography of Frida that I've never seen on the internet, where Frida's being really sexy. Like she's
I have one.
Pre-surgery. Yes, this is where she's on her back or she's on her stomach and she's like.
Yeah, but there's just, hold on. Oh, this is awkward. I'm getting up. Oh.
Not at all.
Oops. Look at this.
Oh, yes. Oh my God.
The ones with her friend. I have so many Frida Kahlo pictures. There's the ones with her friend. And you know, those were on display, or some of them. I don't know if they were all the ones that you saw, but some of them were on display at the Victoria Albert Museum in London. And I think I wrote about this in the book, although I can't remember.
You did?
One of the things that people kept saying is like,
second to last chapter.
It was so pretty. What a waste.
Right. And people but I felt that too when people were like, oh, so sad. It was so sad. And I'm like, what's so sad? You know, I feel like that was an exorcism for her to be able to paint the way that she did. Otherwise, she probably would have gone insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And they always want to focus on like, she took morphine and painkillers. I'm like, yeah, because guess what? You can't do anything when you're in pain. You can just be pain. So that whole idea of pain being amused has always pissed me off. And I think that's because it's just not true. Like if you're experiencing a headache or any kind of pain, and this pain she's experiencing is not just a headache, right? It's something else. Right. You're not like, oh, I feel creative today. You know, I'm just going to go write something. I'm feeling really fresh in the mind. It's like, no, you're just going to try to live through the pain. It's not amuse. It's not amuse. And I think that's also, I think, a very common trope given to women writers, to women artists. And we probably have like, you know, the ecstatic nuns to blame for that. I don't know, but like there's someone to blame. But is that idea of like suffering makes you a good woman and pain is amused. It's just like gross, you know?
No, that's well put. I wanted to ask you more questions. More questions. Emily Rapp Black. I want to. And this. It somewhat ties to Frida, but more ties. When I read this in your essay, when I was pregnant with my daughter, I, you know, of course, Frida had many miscarriages, and I had a miscarriage. I miscarried my son in the second trimester. And when I was pregnant with my daughter, thank you. When I was pregnant with my daughter, you talk about, you know, this person that you're creating and what will they look like? And even though this doesn't have a connection with Frida, I just wanted to say thank you for writing that, because I spent 3 trimesters making every excuse to go to the doctor and get an ultrasound so I could see what this person looked like.
Yeah.
And I would talk to her and say, show me your hands, honey, show me your hands, because I just didn't know how I would navigate. Of course I would, but I didn't know how I would navigate if she came out in a way like me, you know, and it would be fine. But it was something that just stayed with me. Like, how do I raise someone with that? You know, it's a question, but you put that in the essay, and it was so wonderful to read that somebody else has felt that, because I've never come across that with anyone else.
It's hard too, because, and no, thank you for saying that, because it's the same over here. I haven't had that experience with many people either, because people are afraid to say, oh, I want her to be perfect, or whatever that means. You know, that's not a real thing. But I was just like, I don't want anyone to go through all this crap and like it doesn't mean I don't like myself or my life. I mean, I like it just as well as anyone else at this point. What are you going to do? You get one. But she's actually taught me, my daughter, about that, because she doesn't care. Like, that's the thing about kids. They're like, I mean, she's sometimes pulling down my pants at school. Like, look at my mom. I'm like, excuse me. Like, can we please just like leave your mother's clothes on for a minute? I mean, because she wants to show people, And it's not voyeuristic. It's like, it's not even this dopey, like, God special person. It's just like, this is my mom. Right. And this is something unique about her. Just like I have, she's got red hair and freckles. Like, that's what's unique about her. Like, it's not, they don't differentiate. Right. It's kind of amazing. Like, and sometimes she'll say to me, like, oh, I can't wait for you to get a water leggy so you can go in the ocean. I'm like, do you have $50,000? I don't. And then, but I have to say, this moment on the beach happened. It was so extraordinary. My daughter loves the beach, even though she looks like me. I have no idea what's going on there. I'm like, I'm under the umbrella, just like, bitching and moaning and reading like something in Greek or something. I'm like, I hate the water, And she's like running around, and she met this little girl who I think had spina bifida. And she didn't have use of her legs, and she was like just using her arms to crawl across the sand. So now everyone's like, gaping, and Carly was like, she's totally nonplussed. She was like walking next to her, and they were talking, and she's like, wow, she's like, this is an efficient way to cross sand. And then they sat down, and she's like, you be the mermaid first. She's like, because you've got the feet for it, because her feet were kind of pointed. And it was just like not a big deal, right? And then I'm like, oh, you made a new friend. She's like, yeah, I made a new friend, and she has a body that's not like everyone else's. She's like, but I thought I really had a good time with her, and I thought she made a really good mermaid.
Yes.
Anyway, it's a long story, but it's just like,
oh, it's great. My daughter's the same way, but she calls it my little hand, and there is no, that my mom is, she knows I'm different, but it's not a problem. There's no stigma attached to it.
Right. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I think the stigma comes like I am, I think, the oldest mom at my daughter's school. And so she's always like, oh my God, you don't dress like the other moms. Like, why are you listening to this weird music class? I'm like, this is the morning music. And she's like, what? She's like, Mommy! She's like, you're so old and so embarrassed. And I'm like, oh, here comes Tribe. All the parents are like,
good.
She's mortified because of my bad taste in music and my weird clothes.
Well, you did read Sassy Magazine, which was a magazine for alternative.
Who's that on there? Who's that model?
It says, I don't know who this is. Wasn't she in 90210? I think she was. Wasn't? Or what? I don't know. It doesn't say, but it does say
farming sucks. That's two girls' stories. Oh my God.
And then, there's also, 11 uses for an ex-boyfriend.
Oh my God. I know. You look at those like headlines and you're like, what? Or why not having a nice butt means you're not getting asked out on a date. It's like, nice messaging, people.
Sassy Mag.
Sassy. Where was Mother Jones when you needed it?
So Gen X. So alternative.
Yeah.
But it was just really great to connect through this essay with somebody that I feel, that you're in my generation. You navigate in a way that I was like, well, we're just going to be best friends.
Public Enemy? Because I was like, yeah. Oh my God, whenever I hear Public Enemy, I'm like, I think of Frida Kahlo. I'm like, this is not right. Like, oh my God. Yeah, all that 90s vibes. Yeah. That's like how I came into knowing her. So, that's Gen X. I think we're pretty great, to be honest.
I think so too. I think we navigate very well. But and you got to live with Frida. You came into her realm sooner than I did. I didn't until my 30s, but I knew about her, but I didn't dive in deep. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love that she has connected with so many women in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It gives you the freedom to openly say the things that you need to say.
To be free.
About fuckability. I said it. They're going to have to bleep it.
No. Yeah, no. This is something that people are always like, oh, you'll find someone, like I found plenty of people. That's not the issue. It's just the issue of feeling like never, I think it's more my issue actually than it is, other people's. I think it's mine because I've been taught that capacity and, multiple other sources, that something's wrong with me. And so it messes with your mind, So that's always been a concern. I'm just like, I don't care. I mean, like, and I also think it has to do with what women feel confident in, right? I think like I was always like, of course, I've just no qualms about the ability of my brain because that's fine. It's expensive, it's overeducated, but it's always been my thing. Like never have I doubted my mind or its abilities. But my body, on the other hand, like, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's another story. And so trying to kind of bridge that divide and say, like, you don't always have to love yourself every day because that would be exhausting and probably kind of annoying to everyone around you. But find ways to say, like, this is how I feel confident in these clothes or this way. And I think most people, women, especially with some kind of a physical difference, do come to those ways of hide and reveal in a way that maybe other women don't.
Yeah. Do you feel like the world is starting to veer the other way? That do you think there is evolution happening in that, or do you feel like it has stayed stagnant since you were younger, that the views are the same?
I mean, I think it's changing on its face. Like if you look at Hollywood, which I don't really do, but I see like the Media Access Awards, and there's more sort of like people with disabilities being cast in parts of people with disabilities instead of being like, I don't know, CGI legs, whatever they do with CGI. But I don't know. I mean, I also feel like there's still a kind of, I mean, if you go out into any Midwestern supermarket, and, my parents are from the Midwest, it's just like, you feel it's so weird if you have anything.
Yes, 100%.
I mean, like, so I think it's a slow process. And I think it's partly because people don't realize that disability culture is a thing. Like there's been disabled people since there've been people. Mm-hmm. And some of them were considered, sages or, gods or goddesses or just people. So I think we just have in this culture, I think the part of it has to do with capitalism, which is a whole other story, but we just have this idea that if you have this kind of body, then you're the right kind of person.
Right.
A male.
Right. People we should only be seeing, right? Or hearing from.
Yeah.
I agree, 100%. Yeah. For me, the switch happened when every time I was cast in a play, it always took about a week or two for the director to realize my left hand because I was so capable. Oh, that's interesting. Good at it. And I have my tricks, and if I didn't have pockets, I always needed to have a purse or a prop or something to distract the eye, And once they finally saw it, I think they had like an oh shit moment, especially in my 20s and 30s, because people have never dealt with that, at least in my existence. Mm-hmm. I've never met another actor like me. And I was doing this play when I was in my 30s, and I got to the costume part where you get into tech and dress, and I put it on and I realized there were no pockets in the costume. And I had rehearsed the whole time in a way to hide it. And it was just that revolution, that relative moment where I thought, I can't hide, I can't. And that this is who I have to be. And there was this really wonderful moment for me, Emily, that it was like petrifying because you're in front of 500 people.
Yeah. Oh, I can feel it.
Yeah. And then also just like, this is who I am, and there was like two sides of me in that moment in performing, that I could hear myself saying the lines, and then I could hear audience members throughout the play. They do that thing where they're like, did you see her hand?
Oh my God, no.
Ralph, was that Ralph?
Betty, did you see that? Oh my God. So did you write, are you going to put that in your new version of your play?
It's in there. I mean, it's towards, yeah, just that moment where it's like, oh, I feel like Frida gave me this power to just decide. It was like, you decide, Vanessa, you decide what, just like you write, what do you want people to see? What do you not want them to see? But the idea of that I had not been letting anyone see it for that long, and to no fault of my parents, you know, but I feel like I was raised in a way where it was the prosthetic hands. It was a lot of pockets and things. It was never talked about. There was no explanation. No, it wasn't talked about, you know, because I feel like sometimes parents feel like it's sort of, it's their fault, you know, or my mother carries a lot of guilt about that, but
mom too.
Yeah. And did a wonderful job, you know, but still was consistently trying to find some sort of avenue to offer me a way to be completely typical. And it was never going to happen.
Well, that's it too. Like my poor parents were like, we wanted you to have a normal life. I'm like, that didn't happen. But you know, my mom told me this story. And of course my parents, like, they're from farmland in Illinois. Like they've known each other their whole lives. It couldn't be more gross and like small town. And they're like 80. So this is in the, you know, the 70s. And my mom would take me to the store, and she would say that she told me this other day, she would rehearse in the mirror. There's nothing wrong with my baby. She uses a leg to walk. There's nothing wrong with my baby. She uses a leg to walk. And so she could say it while smiling. And I was like, why did you have to do it while smiling? She's like, well, I didn't want to be rude. I'm like, oh my God.
That is so Midwestern.
I was like, wow, so you're basically a Midwestern farm wife to 100%.
Yes.
You know, and I'm like, well, why did you have to be nice about it? That's what we did. Yeah, that's what you did. And she's like, and I wanted you to have a normal life. And she's like, well, that didn't happen anyway. I don't know what I even tried. You know, so it's just like, you know, it didn't work. I've had a very strange life. But that's the life that I like my life, you know. I would never want, what if a normal life is what I think it is, I have no interest.
Same here. It sounds pretty monotonous and myopic. I feel like I had a point when you were saying all of that, and it's gone for me. I was thinking about Frida Kahlo and how she managed, I mean, with her polio, and they called her peg leg.
I know, they called me that too.
Oh my God.
So rude. Yeah.
But I also feel like, I mean, how did she navigate that? I wish we knew what childhood Frida would say when people would approach her with that, because kids would ask me, like, what happened to your hand? And my go-to answer, which was my script from my mom, which answered absolutely nothing, Emily, was, I was born that way, which is true.
Lady Gaga!
Right. To which, when I got older, I used to get bored, and then I'd elaborate, and I'd say a bomb went off in my hand, or, you know, and which didn't get me any friends. I
used shark for almost a whole year. I was like, shark. And my mom was like, did you tell someone that we went swimming and a shark bit your leg off? We'd never been, I mean, we did Wyoming, and I was like, I don't know, maybe. Why not? Like, you were born like this? Does not make sense to an 8-year-old, but a shark. Right. That's cool.
Yeah. You know,
or let's, you know, whoa, you know.
I know. Like, let's give it some dramatic effect. At least that explains something. But yeah. Oh my goodness.
So what other parts of the play will you shift around?
Well, I started for the first version I had, I just was Frida. And then something weird happened. I started, and I put this in the play, which is going to make me sound like a completely insane person. And I just realized I have to lean into it. And that's what I have to do, because it's the truth. I started doing her makeup. You know, I did the flowers, and I did the rosy cheeks and the earrings, and I painted my unibrow. Not as they do sometimes in paintings, but to her extent. And I started to get a little confused about her face and mine. It started to do this weird melding.
Yeah.
And I decided to start, instead of just being Frida, to step out of her and just start to talk to her as myself, and then tell my story within this play.
So good.
With that. Oh, thank you. It was just, it happened. You know what I mean? You never plan on doing that.
No, but I love the idea of not knowing the difference between your face and her face. Like, I think when I was writing this book, I was like, am I like a reincarnation of
we can talk about, and I get it.
But it's like, I mean, I think it's just because, and maybe this is why we don't get a lot of stories about empowered women with disabilities. We don't get a lot of stories about empowered women who've been through pain in their body. So of course, if we only know so many stories, we're going to feel really connected to the stories that we have. It's like, if you have one letter from your missing parent, that's a really precious letter. It feels like the same thing sometimes to me.
Right.
Like, she has this body of work, and there's not a lot of other for mothers or for people to sort of latch onto when you're doing something creative, like acting or writing or all those things, painting. I mean, you've got to have inspiration somewhere. I mean, you've got to, or not even, I hate that word, inspiration, but you have to have a kind of model of how to be in the world that isn't friendly to women artists, because it isn't.
Right. And her fearlessness about it too, that she would just cross dress for the family picture. She's like, I'm gonna dress like the guy today, Dad. Like she didn't care.
Oh God, I started doing that in high school. I was a horrible looking boy. I was like, I would wear my dad's old suits and like switch them with like, I don't know, some horrible 80s belt, and like try to like slip my hair. It was ridiculous. I was so stupid. But it was the same kind of thing. It was just like, I don't want to be conventional at all, even though I desperately wanted to be normal, but I didn't want to be conventional. And I think that discernment is really an interesting line.
Mm-hmm. Might be a Cancerian thing, Emily.
Are you a Cancer too?
No, but my best friends are. All my friends are Cancer.
What are you?
I'm a bull.
Oh, yeah, bull. I like the bull. Good. That's good. Although I'm another sign in some other system that I don't remember what I am. I think I'm a Gemini.
Really?
Like the Hindu system or whatever. The Vedic system. I don't know.
Who knows?
I'm a mess. That's what I am. A hot mess. That's bad.
But yeah, I didn't plan on the play shaping up that way, but I just sent it to Portland Center Stage and I said, this is the new version, which is different from 2 years ago. And they were so supportive of it and welcoming. Yeah.
When will you do it? Like, when is it going to go up?
It'll go, it previews on October 9th and it goes till November 8th.
And it's live, or you're doing it? Are you live? Okay.
You should
come see it.
Come hang out.
October 9th through what? December?
October 9th to November 8th.
Okay.
8th? Goodness, let me make sure I've got that right. I'm like lying on this. Let's see, to November 7th.
Okay. Nice.
I would love it.
Love to come and see it. Oh my gosh, I want to make that happen.
Yeah.
So how is it for you when you're reading it or acting it? How is it different, the new version? How does it feel? Like, how does it feel in your skin to do the different version?
Well, to be honest, Emily, I haven't done it in front of any people yet, this new version. So it'll be the first, leap into it. But I did a little touch of it 2 years ago, and it felt really interesting. It felt like I was cracking my ribs open and letting people in, which when you do that, then the reflection between you and Frida becomes more tangible. Mm-hmm. It becomes more important. So yeah, I let them in 2 years ago, but I also talk about my parents and my mother trying to be this very defiant Brazilian woman. And I tell this story about what my mother did when my father cheated on her. And I didn't know as a child, I just knew that, and it's a reflection that I have with Frida and like the anger that she must have felt and yet the want from Diego. But I decided to share this story, and that's kind of what the avenue was to start talking more about myself. I talk about how my mom went into the kitchen and didn't talk to my dad, and she'd fill up one sink with water and the other one with soap water, and then she'd stack all the dirty dishes to her left, and she would wash one, she would wash it, rinse it, dry it, and then break it on the floor. And she would go one.
Wow, that's a great.
I'm on my dad's behind her being like, please, Paula, please speak to me. And I was just like, Oh shit.
Wow, that is like cinematic.
That's just a lot of people.
Yeah.
But just how did Frida go through, dealing with affairs? And even though she had her own, I think there was a lot of feelings connected to that with Diego, and was it sometimes, to get back, or was it also just for her? I'm sure it's a mixed bag of all of that. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you probably have. I don't know if you've read her journal, but there's this passage where she's talking about Diego, and what I really love about it is that they had such an ambivalent, weird, gray area relationship. She can't even come up with a color for her love for him. For an artist that's very colorful in terms of the way she uses paint. Just as much as I know about art, that's all I know. He used paint well. That she can't come up with a color of how she feels about him, and I think that's maybe the biggest expression of it's how you love a child or how you grieve a child. It's there's no, it's just
Intangible.
Chaos. It's intangible, and it's so profound that it becomes elusive. And that to me was that kind of, I thought, spun the narrative, because I don't like it when people are oh, she was so pathetic. It's would they have said that if she wasn't in bed? Would they have said that if she was, she did her own plate breaking, I'm sure. Right? Who knows what she broke? Maybe maybe she had her monkey throw things and break shit. I don't know. But that I think is just a really, that narrative always bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things about narrative about her that I didn't bother me. But I'm not saying mine are right. I'm just saying that, and I'm sure you feel the same way. It's just that I feel these deep points of connection with her that's that crosses time, history, and culture, language. And it doesn't mean that I'm saying I know what she did or how she felt. It's just that I feel a kinship with her, and I think that's like every other woman friend I have, that's really powerful to me.
Absolutely. And rare, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I also loved in the book how you talk about how women artists who suffer can't really be appreciated until after they die, because there's something threatening about them, right? About them suffering. And I wonder if the same thing happened to Diego, because he seemed to be so sad and heartbroken and devout to her after she died, and not so much during. It seems like during that relationship there was a lot of back and forth, and that really struck a chord with me when you talked about how women aren't appreciated until after they die, which we know historically is true with so many artists.
I think it's also a common experience of just women in general. When women leave marriages, suddenly the guys are like, what happened? Probably a lot of things you ignored and were told about. They're really, I think this is part of being a woman in a patriarchal society, right? It's and I think this is what I love about Frida, is that I don't think her art came from her relationship with Diego. I think Diego was a part of her art. Mm-hmm. Because he was a part of the regeneration of a culture at a time. She walked by his mural when she was a kid. A little crazy, but also things were changing in Mexico. So it wasn't just about them. It was about this larger vision of what it meant to have art in the world, and to be an activist, to be involved, to be a good citizen. So it transcended in some ways any kind of romantic bond. And, I think he probably did feel really devastated when she died. And if he didn't feel that way, he probably acted like he did, because he would have looked like a jerk. I almost said another word, but I feel like we're going to get bleeped the whole way.
We're going to get bleeped a lot.
Yeah.
In her studio, absolutely. Didn't you feel when you sat there, you're like, well, this is where he sat to paint, and then here's her area with her little tiny mirror. It was tiny.
I know.
Tiny.
Yeah.
It was the size of this cup, Emily.
She's looking at it. No, but this is the thing about like creating in tight spaces. This is something I think that women artists do really well. probably because we can multitask really well. But like when my son was alive and I was writing like a fiendishly, I would write in 10-minute bursts, like 10 minutes. Like, I mean, they were wild bursts, but they were only 10 minutes long. And because I had to do all these things with him and he was sitting next to me, and I was like, that system is one I still use. And I was like, So in grad school, when all of my male teachers told me I should sit down for 4 hours at the same time every day and write, not going to happen in my life. But 10 minutes, I can make that work. And I'm not saying that we should like give up this unfettered time. I'm just saying that I never got that advice from a woman writer.
No, and I feel like it's different for everyone too, you know. But I had the same advice given to me by a male playwright, and he said you should sit at 5 a.m. and start writing. And I was like, I can't even think a thought at 5 a.m. Like what?
No, the only thing I love to get up early. Yeah, I love to get up early because I get on my Peloton. That's what I do at 5 a.m. I don't want to be like using my brain. I just want to be like you know, I want to sweat and then it's over and then I can sort of go on with my day. But like nobody wants to write at 5 a.m. Like so that's not totally true, but I think I got the same advice. And I'm like, yeah, but who's getting the kids ready for school? Like who's cooking? Like what's that going to be going on there?
Because women do have to do all of that and then everything on top of it.
Yeah,
and create and support. I'm the same way. And when I first wrote this play, it came out in 5 days, and people are like, 5 days.
They had to come.
I didn't like sit on a nest egg. 5 days. That's it. And I was like, but it happened in a burst just like that. It was like, but it felt like a download. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have these. I mean, this is a really sad visual aid, but like, I had these yellow notebooks, and I remember when I was working on my first book, I was like, you know, depressed and like doing the 4-hour thing, and like I wasn't doing it. And then I had to go. I offered to babysit one of the fellows. It was a work center. It was a fine arts work center in Provincetown, which my mom still thinks was a nudist colony. I was like, Mom, it's a writer's colony. Like, but you were all clothed. I'm like, yes, most of the time. I mean, there was some stuff happening, but we were together. Anyway, so I went to take care of this little boy who's now probably like 40 or something. And all of a sudden, like I had just given him a bottle, and then he went to bed, and then I got him back up, and then I put him back, and all of a sudden I had all these ideas, and I was like, yellow notepad magic. And I was like, oh, because I'm not like white knuckling my computer or trying to be awesome. I'm just interested in the story now. I'm curious. I'm not, like that.
Do you still write that way? On the yellow notepad, or
I'm definitely a feast or famine person. Like I'll be like, I have an idea, and then like I'll write some notes or on like my hands. I never have any paper. My phone, Siri, make a note. Like Charlie's always laughing at me about that. My daughter, she's like, Siri, make a note. So, and then I usually just I write. Like I will write for long stretches of time sometimes, or I'll just do something really quick. And then just think about it. Like I really believe in the gestation of art. I think it's like we don't give ourselves enough elastic time to observe the world.
Yep. That space where you're like in pajamas and staring off, and people think it's being non-productive, but that's actually where it's all starting to happen for me.
And no observation is neutral. Like you go out in the world, you're working. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it. You're working on a play, working on this play. You go out in the world. Nothing that you experience is a neutral experience. It's all like downloading, if you will, into your brain, and it's coming out probably in ways you don't even know. That's kind of great. Like, why would you want to know how it works? But it does work.
You're the best.
I know. I was like, where have you been? How come I didn't have any fun friends when my body passed at recess? No, but actually, someone was saying to me, like, what did you like recess? Like, that must have been so sad. I was like, oh, no, I thought a shark had bitten off my leg, and everyone wanted to sit inside with me and color. I'm a shark girl. Anyway.
I do hope you come to Portland.
I would love to. I mean, this is so exciting. Like, so is it 5 days, or is it like, does it take you 5 days to write this one, or has it been like a slower burn?
It's been a slower burn. After I went to Casa Azul and Dolores's house, it was Dolores. I did some scrapbooking. It's somewhere
Oh,
around.
I'd love to go to her house. I did not have that as an option. I should have said something to my Uber driver, but I don't speak Spanish. So.
Yeah, well, you didn't get spit on, so that's good. Yeah. But it was a slow gestation, and it truly started to evolve when my director Joni Schultz came on board. And she came on sight unseen, like that. Talk about love. I was like, hey, will you direct this play? And she was like, yes. And then she goes, can I read it?
Oh, that's what you want. You want someone that's like at the cart, like in the next county, and your horse is like over here waiting to be born. That's the person you want. That's awesome.
She's the best. She sat with me, and when you have someone read your things out loud, it's super embarrassing the first time and then every time sometimes. But she sat with me and we read it. And then she said this great question to me. She goes, well, Vanessa, who is Frida talking to? And I was like, oh, she's talking to the audience. And she's like, So then I did some more research and found this architect magazine in the 50s called ID Architecture Magazine. And they wanted to interview Diego and Frida about Casa Azul, but Frida died before it could happen. And then I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting if the interview did happen? So I have this white man from America that comes in. We never hear him talk, but she's talking to Clive Powell, because that's a very American name. She's talking to Clive Powell.
He's lined up on the table, and he's just like knocking them down like bowling pins. Yeah.
That's the device that kind of changed everything for me, because then she was talking to this man that's come to interview her about the architecture of her house, but you get Frida Kahlo instead.
That's such a good framework, though, because then it's like she's in her element,
right? And it's like
apart,
and every once in a while she'll paprika some information about the house for him, but then goes back into. And I didn't shy away from the fact that she was injecting, into her thigh and the drinking, and I put it all in there, because she wanted to come across as so affable to people, and because she didn't want people to not be around her, so she was continuously trying to be, lovable and funny, and so I have that. But as soon as the pain becomes too much, that patina starts to wear off.
Yeah, well, that's another thing that. There's a very common, I think, experience for people with disabilities. Is certainly common for me. Like, I'm not saying I'm like a comedian, but I'm saying like I knew that I had to be funny, because if you're funny, you're not intimidating. You're just, everyone wants to be around you, right? So people are like, what did you do at recess? You post that thing. I'm like, oh, everyone wanted to be with me. Like, I was fun. Like, I had this shark story. Like, I had hair they could braid. Like, I was not an idiot. Like, I knew that to be funny and affable would make me have a place to belong. And I don't know if I would have been like that otherwise. I probably would have been like a weird cancer, like knitting sweaters and making pot pies or something. Everyone's like, you don't seem like a cancer. I'm like, I don't know what to say to that. Like, I'm sorry. That's when I was born.
You are, except maybe sometimes you shell away. Like sometimes you're just like,
but it's like, I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't draw, I can't knit, I can't cook, and I don't like to clean, but I do other stuff. So yeah, it's actually, Frida died the month I was born, 20 years ago. So she died in 1954, and I was born in July of 1974. So that's kind of a weird connection for me when I realized that. And she was 47. She died, and I'm 47 this year, so it's, oh God.
I know, isn't that interesting? People say, how are you going to play this, Vanessa? And I said, I'll do it for a couple of years, but I don't want to play Frida past 47. I feel like that's just a big lie at that point, so I will release her into the ether at that point. But
God, it's so young. Of course, that's what I think now, because that's what the age I am. But it is like,
yeah, and you look like you're 30. You look like you pee water.
I can't figure out with this crowd class. It's like the opposite of what I think is going to happen. Like,
the camera?
I think go the other way, but
I know. I need to go here more.
Like the mirror image. I think this is really great. So how are they going to do, like, what's your expectation of audience? Like, what do they do with plays now? Like, do they, I'm asking the stupidest question, but like, I'm just curious how you're going to get the word out. Yeah.
I mean, the climate's just changing all the time, right? So I'm directing a play right now, and what they're doing for this play is they have to have proof of vaccination, and the audience has to wear a mask.
Okay.
And then the actors will take off their mask on stage. So it is my hope. I could not perform this in a mask. There's no. But no,
that'd be weird. Yeah, no, you can't do that.
I think there's options 1, 2, and 3. They've got ammunition there, but it is my hope that they can come and sit safely and watch it, whether distance or not. Mm-hmm.
Oh, if I come though, I'm gonna be a total fangirl. Like my friend Bash wrote a play. It was in New York, and so we were at the Lincoln Center. Like my friend and I, and we're like, we know the writer, like at the ticket booth, and he's like, you know William Shakespeare? We're like, theater. So, like down the road we went. But it was like we were like in the front seat, like she was so embarrassed. She was in the back. We're like,
I will stand all over you. I told my director, I was like, I'm like, she said yes. And I'm like, and I'm kind of freaking out about it, Joni. Kind of freaking out.
No, don't freak out. You might freak out. I mean, I'm a serious fangirl, though. It can be a little much. But I'll be in a mask, so it won't matter. But no, I'm going to try to come. And it's not that far to go to Portland. And yeah, I think that'd be a really fun thing to do. I mean, I really want to see it or read it. I mean, I don't really want to read it because I want to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a huge moment in there. I just decided to do movement piece in there because my history career was dance. So I decided, like, when it came to all of her miscarriages and catching Diego in bed with her sister, I decided to move it into a movement sequence, which I think explains. Sometimes it just is better than trying to say things on stage. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, no, I like that's interesting. It's like a different visual language, right? For grief, for sadness, like, and some of those experiences. Well, especially I think the miscarriage experiences. It's sort of a wordless feeling. Like there's no words really. So right. You got to move or do something else. Mm-hmm. That's a great idea. I'm so excited now. I'm like, how can I get there?
Oh, Emily, please do. I would be beside myself.
Really fun. I would love to bring Charlie. I hope my daughter.
My daughter will be there.
How old is your daughter?
She's 9.
Okay, so Charlie's 7, so they're close in age.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So my whole house looks like a 7-year-old. It's like unicorns everywhere. Like, why do I have a unicorn bedspread? Yeah. So anyway, wow. Thank you so much for asking me to do this. I hope I didn't talk too much.
I love that you talked so much. Keep talking, always.
So, but no, I really admire. I was sort of stalking you online, but I think it's a really amazing project, and I think anyone who's I don't know, she's just a fascinating character, and I think I've only seen the movies with her, but I've never seen a play about Frida Kahlo. So I'm excited now.
Bring it on. Yeah, there's little ones. There's little ones out there. Really?
Yeah. The movies I was like,
I know. Yeah.
I'm always afraid to go to the movie because it's like it's just different.
I know. I agree with the Selma Hayek one. And then you find out what she went through and then I'm like, oh, Selma.
I know. Yeah, no, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Always a sort of a hidden story there.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Oh my God, it was an absolute pleasure. And I'm going to now figure out how to do this Portland thing.
Please come. Bring Charlie. We'll hang out. They'll be best friends.
They will. She's local. She loves an older girl.
When's her birthday?
It's her birthday. What?
When's her birthday? Charlie.
She's a Pisces.
Okay.
What about your daughter?
Aries.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
My son was an Aries. It's I have a lot of Aries in me, actually. I think Cancer's an Aries. Of course, I'm like, Cancer's and Aries get a bad rap because that's like all my chart. But no, that's good. Like, that's a strong, like, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's all real. But, well, awesome. I will definitely please keep in touch. I'd love to come and see it and read it if you want to share it, but if not,
I'll send it to you.
I'd
I
love to read it. I'd love to read it.
archival video, but I feel like watching stage on film is an abomination. It's always
Weird. Yeah.
It's 2D. Yeah, it's like
It's weird. It's weird. But you know what's really good right now on Amazon is Hollow Crown. It's the King cycle of Shakespeare.
Okay.
Not like on stage. It's like live. It's
Okay.
by Sam Mendes.
Oh. Okay.
It's pretty amazing. Like we were just saying that, I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad they didn't film it on stage
Mm-hmm.
and then make it a movie. It's
Right.
just like they're out in the field.
Hollow Crown.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Also,
Yeah.
Tom Hiddleston is in it.
Okay.
And he's like the hottest person in the world. So I was like, oh, purchase. So,
Right on. All right.
all right. Well, I hope to see you in Portland. Thank you so much. It's been really
Oh my
fun.
God. Thank you. You're
So
beautiful.
happy to meet you. It was really
Yeah.
fun.
Thank you. I don't know if Jonah comes back or he
No,
leaves.
he ran away. He thinks we're crazy.
Probably.